Have you ever walked away from a conversation and wondered, why did I agree to that? Nobody threatened you. Nobody forced you. And yet, somehow, your decision changed. You bought something you had not planned to buy. You apologized when you were not entirely at fault. Or you revealed more than you intended to say. That is the quiet power of a psychological influence. It does not always look like control. Sometimes it looks like kindness. Sometimes it sounds like confidence. And sometimes it hides inside a choice that feels completely yours. But let me make one thing clear. Understanding influence should never become an excuse to manipulate people. Real psychological strength is not controlling someone else. It is recognizing what is shaping your decisions, protecting your freedom of thought, and communicating with greater awareness. Today, I want to show you several psychological principles that quietly influence human behavior. You may recognize them in advertising, friendships, relationships, and the workplace. And once you understand them, you may never experience an ordinary conversation in quite the same way again. The first principle is psychological reactance. Human beings value freedom. The moment someone tells you that you cannot do something, part of your mind becomes more interested in doing exactly that. You may remember this from childhood. Someone said, "Do not open that drawer." And suddenly, that drawer became the most interesting object in the room. Nothing changed except the restriction. This is why pressure often creates resistance. Tell someone, "You must agree with me," and they may defend their position more strongly. Tell someone, "Do not watch this," and curiosity may push them toward it. Some people exploit this by questioning another person's ability. They say, "You probably cannot handle this," hoping pride will force cooperation. It may work once, but it slowly destroys trust. A wiser approach is to offer freedom. Instead of saying, "You need to change," say, "You are free to decide, but consider what this pattern is costing you." Freedom lowers resistance. Pressure strengthens it. So the next time you feel a strong urge to prove someone wrong, pause and ask, "Do I truly want this, or am I reacting to how it was presented?" That question can return the decision to you. The second principle is choice architecture. Most people believe their decisions begin entirely inside their own minds. But many decisions begin with the options placed in front of them. Imagine someone asks, "Would you like coffee or tea?" You begin deciding between coffee and tea, but perhaps you wanted neither. The question quietly removed that option. Or someone asks, "Should we meet on Friday evening or Saturday morning?" Your mind begins comparing two times. But the bigger question, whether you want to meet at all, has already been pushed aside. Businesses understand this very well. A subscription service labels one plan most popular. A salesperson asks whether you prefer the black model or the silver one before you have decided to buy. The danger is not that choices exist. The danger is forgetting to step outside them. Whenever someone presents you with two options, ask, "Are these really my only choices?" Perhaps you can delay the decision. Perhaps you need more information. Perhaps you can refuse both. The person who designs the options can influence the outcome. So never confuse a limited choice with complete freedom. The third principle is emotional framing. People like to believe they make decisions through logic, but emotion often decides first, and logic arrives later to explain the decision. Consider these two statements. This decision gives us a 90% chance of success. This decision carries a 10% chance of failure. The numbers are identical, but the emotional experience is different. One creates hope. The other creates fear. Politicians understand this. Advertisers understand it. Skilled negotiators understand it. The facts may remain the same while the frame changes how those facts feel. Words such as loss, danger, betrayal, freedom, security, and respect do more than communicate information. They create a mental state. And once someone enters that state, judgment may begin serving the emotion. Fear makes urgent decisions feel necessary. Anger makes punishment feel justified. Excitement makes risk appear smaller. Guilt makes unreasonable requests feel like obligations. So when you feel pushed toward an immediate choice, slow down. Ask, what facts remain when I remove the emotional language? Then ask, would I make the same decision tomorrow when this feeling is less intense? Strong emotions demand speed. Wisdom often asks for time. The fourth principle is silence. Many people are uncomfortable with silence because silence creates space. And in that space, the mind begins working. Imagine you are explaining yourself. You finish speaking. The other person says nothing. They simply look at you. What often happens next? You continue talking. You add details. You soften your position. You may even reveal something you never intended to reveal. The other person did not force you. The silence did the work. But silence has two forms. Healthy silence gives people time to think. It prevents impulsive words. It makes room for truth. Manipulative silence is used as punishment. It creates anxiety and makes someone chase approval. Healthy silence says, I am listening. Manipulative silence says, I will make you uncomfortable until you surrender. When someone becomes silent during an important conversation, do not rush to fill every second. Breathe. Let your words stand. And when you need time, say, I want to think before I respond. That is not weakness. That is emotional control. The fifth principle is consistency. Human beings want their present behavior to match their past identity. Once someone says, I am a loyal person, they feel pressure to behave loyally. Once they publicly support an idea, changing their mind may feel embarrassing. Once they make a small commitment, they become more likely to accept a larger one. This is why small agreements can lead to bigger decisions. But consistency can also become a trap. You may remain in a bad situation because you already invested years in it. You may defend a belief because you once announced it confidently. You may continue supporting someone because admitting the truth feels painful. Let me tell you something important. Changing your mind after receiving better information is not weakness. It is growth. Consistency is valuable when it protects your principles. It becomes dangerous when it protects your pride. The next time you hear yourself saying, I have already come this far, ask, would I choose this again if I were starting today? Your past deserves respect, but it should not control your future. The sixth principle is social proof. When people feel uncertain, they look at what others are doing. A crowded restaurant appears better than an empty one. A product with thousands of reviews feels safer. A belief repeated by many people begins to sound true, even when repetition is not evidence. This instinct once helped human beings survive in groups, but modern life can exploit it. Numbers create authority. Popularity creates confidence, and confidence can be mistaken for truth. You may see a video with millions of views and assume the information is accurate. You may see thousands of people praising someone and ignore your own discomfort. But popularity answers only one question. How many people are paying attention? It does not answer, is this true? Is this wise? Is this healthy for me? Use social proof as information, not as a replacement for judgment. A crowd can point toward value. It can also move confidently in the wrong direction. The seventh principle is emotional validation. Every human being wants to feel understood. When someone feels heard, their defensiveness often decreases. They become more willing to listen. They may reveal what is really driving their behavior. Imagine two people arguing. One says, "You are being ridiculous." The other becomes defensive immediately. But consider this response. "I can see why this situation made you feel ignored. I may not agree with everything you said, but I understand why it affected you." Agreement was not required. Understanding was offered. Validation does not mean accepting harmful behavior. It does not mean surrendering your boundaries. It means recognizing the emotional experience beneath the words. But remember this: manipulative people can imitate empathy. They may mirror your pain simply to gain trust. So do not judge empathy by words alone. Look at behavior. Does the person respect your boundaries after claiming to understand you? Do their actions match their concern? Genuine validation leaves you clearer and safer. Manipulative validation leaves you exposed and dependent. There is one final principle I want you to remember. The pause principle. Most psychological influence becomes stronger when you react immediately. A request creates guilt. You say yes. An insult creates anger. You respond. An offer creates excitement. You purchase. A threat creates fear. You surrender. But a pause interrupts the pattern. Sometimes one sentence is enough. "Let me think about that." Or, "I am not ready to decide yet." Or simply, "I will respond tomorrow." The pause gives emotion time to settle. It gives hidden pressure time to become visible. And most importantly, it gives you a chance to ask whether the choice truly belongs to you. Imagine a professional whose manager regularly gives him extra work late in the day. The request always sounds flattering. "You are the only person I can trust with this." At first, he feels valued. Then the requests become routine. Whenever he hesitates, the manager says, "I thought you cared about the team." That sentence combines praise, identity, guilt, and consistency. For months he agrees, not because he has time, because refusing feels like betraying the identity he has been given. Then one evening he pauses. He says, "I care about the team, but I cannot complete this responsibly tonight. We can move the deadline or assign part of it elsewhere." He does not attack. He does not over-explain. He steps outside the emotional frame and returns to the real issue. That is psychological strength. Not controlling another person, controlling your own response. Perhaps you came here hoping to learn how influence works. But I want to leave you with a deeper truth. The most powerful person in a conversation is not always the one who speaks most confidently. It is often the person who can recognize pressure without immediately obeying it. The person who can feel emotion without becoming its servant. The person who understands influence without becoming manipulative. And the person who protects their own freedom while respecting the freedom of others. For the next 7 days, try a simple challenge. Whenever you feel pressured, flattered, frightened, guilty, or unusually excited, do not decide immediately. Pause and ask yourself 3 questions. What am I feeling? What is creating this feeling? And what would I choose without the pressure? You may discover that some decisions were never as free as they appeared. But awareness changes that. Once you recognize a pattern, it begins to lose its power. And perhaps that is the real purpose of psychology. Not to make you the master of other people, but to help you become the master of your own mind. Now I would like to hear from you. Which of these principles have you experienced most strongly? Silence? Emotional pressure? Limited choices? The need to remain consistent? Share your experience in the comments. Your insight may help someone else recognize a pattern they have been unable to explain. And if this conversation helped you understand human behavior more clearly, subscribe to Scarlet Jung Thoughts. Here, we do not chase empty motivation. We explore the quiet forces shaping your emotions, relationships, and decisions. Until next time, stay calm, stay observant, and never give your mind away without noticing.